Absolutely. Okay. Friends, in just a moment, we are going to begin the funeral services for Earl H. Goldman. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask for you to please take a moment to turn it off, or at least put it in the silent mode. Officiating today's services will be Rabbi Neil Brill. And also like to welcome those of you who are joining us via the live stream as well. While your presence isn't able to be here physically, the family appreciates you joining with them in support. Thank you.
First in the Hebrew, Ashrei Haish asher lo halach bi'atzas rishoyim v'derech chataim lo amad u'v'moshav leitzim lo yoshav ki im b'soras Adonai chepso ובסורסו יגע יומם ולילה. והיה כי ישו לו על פלגי מים אשר פריו ייתן בעתו ועליהו לא ייבול וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. לכן הרשעים כי אם כמות אשר תדפנו רוח. על כן לא יקומו רשעים המשפט וחטאים בידה צדיקים, כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים תעבור. Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the God, meditating on God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. So David HaMelech, King David, was prolific in writing the Psalms. And the next psalm that we say on just such an occasion is, of course, one of King David's. Lord, who may sojourn in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy mountain? One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from the heart. Who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor casts disgrace toward a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to personal hurt and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall not falter. The next psalm that we say on an occasion like this is one that's known well to people actually across the world, the 23rd Psalm. I think you have that in your pamphlet. Let me take out mine because I have found that every writing of this psalm has a little bit different translation. On the inside of the cover, 23rd Psalm. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before my enemies, before me and in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I never had the opportunity to meet Earl in person, but the family I've met. And spouse and children, all the children, are a good indication of the kind of person that Earl was. You know, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So we can see from the family immediately what kind of person we're here to bid farewell to. Earl Henry Goldman, Alter ben Yitzchak v'Chaya Leah, beloved husband of Marilyn, loving father of Yitzchak, Isaac, and Aaron, stepfather of Heidi, Lisa, proud step-grandfather of Hannah and Josh, and Ari and Emily, devoted brother of Glenn and the late Seymour, cherished uncle of Scott. This is the man to whom we are bidding farewell. I had the opportunity yesterday of sitting around the kitchen table and finding out about Earl. A man that was born in Detroit, made his way to Chicago, where he had different types of employment. With his master's degree, he taught political science, political history at the college level. And he also had a real estate broker's license. As some of his children lovingly called him, read to his children at bedtime, and even made up stories to tell his children. And some of those stories were about a magic chicken. One day I'll go further into that one and find out really about this chicken. Holidays such as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Passover were of particular importance to him, and he strived to observe the essence of those holy days. I was told that Earl had an unfiltered sense of humor. And I'm also told, I had the feeling, I wasn't told it, that we should underline the word unfiltered. And he was known as an entertainer by his doctors and nurses. And although Earl didn't appreciate open spaces or crowds, he was known to favor a couple of the neighborhood cats and even let one of them into his home. So I have the feeling that to describe Earl as a frugal person would almost be an understatement. I would have wanted Earl to work with my accountant after being told how he scrutinized each and every bill that he received. And I suspect that his scrutinizing was behind being awake at all hours of the night. And although Earl was described to me as being stubborn, I would prefer the term persistent in his thinking. Sounds so much more positive. So this is a glimpse of the man. And of course his offspring and his spouse can go much further, and I see all the friends and family that are here, which also tells me a great deal. One of the things about writing a eulogy when the rabbi gets home is how to do something personal. How do you personalize this and go one step beyond? So if it's not one particular story, and I've mentioned a couple of perhaps scripts for stories, I found a poem that I remember reading about 1,000 years ago when I was in high school. And it's by John Donne, and it's called Death Be Not Proud. And I'd like to share this with you today. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those who thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Much pleasure then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. And better than thy stroke, why swellest thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. So, we're not talking about an end. We are talking about memories that we will cherish forever. Memories that that the family can talk about, family and friends can talk about, and that's what keeps a person's spirit alive. After having said these few words, I'd like to call on Isaac and Aaron, who might want to share a few words with us.
When I was little, I would always refer to my dad as Da and my mom as Ba. Eventually, I grew out of it with my mom, but until his final day, I always called him Da, and that's what he'll always be. I have a lot of amazing memories with him. In my younger days, when he was more healthy, he used to have a T-Bird, and we would go riding in there together during the summer days with the 8-track, all the bedtime stories, and the one he made up for me specifically, the Yiskak and the Magic Chicken. When he did hotel security briefly at the Radisson, he would bring me pieces of 8, which were chocolates, and the little toiletries there, which I thought were the coolest thing because I had never been to a hotel. When his mother was sick, I called her Bob, and we would always go to the nursing home to see her. After she died, we would go with him most nights to shul to say the Kaddish. When he was doing real estate, we would go to his homes together. And I remember one time I found in one of the windows, lodged deep in there, there was this beautiful blue ceramic bird, and I still have it to this day. It will always remind me of him. Before Hebrew school, sometimes he'd make me a little snack. He made the best tuna sandwiches, and to this day, I found one place in Texas that kind of resembles it, but still not quite the same thing. He taught me things like how to ride a bike, how to tie my own tie, and how to be a very picky eater. Some of my other favorite memories, we didn't go out to eat that much as a kid, but Gulliver's was always our restaurant. We would go there usually once a month or so. Some of his qualities, like the rabbi said, he was very, very cheap. And I'm glad I didn't inherit that from him. I mean, he would, if I called the wrong number, he would make me get credit for the calls. He would always make sure I was using coupons. And he used to give me the most hideous at-home haircuts when I was little. I mean, it's no wonder I really didn't have many friends growing up. He was very stubborn and hard-headed, and I think that's why we clashed a lot. I definitely got that from him. His sense of smell, I got from him. I mean, if none of his other careers worked out, he would have made a great police canine. And last but not least was his sense of non-filtered, offensive humor. Loved it. I think I'm a little bit more tactful than he was, but as I got older, he stayed in more, and I was the type that always wanted to be out and about. But he was a night owl, as most of you knew, and he'd be up all hours of the night watching TV, being online, eating junk food. So sometimes when I would come home late at night, we'd have conversations, and the cats would be out. I mean, we didn't even own these cats. They were neighborhood cats that would come to our front porch. We would feed them. We would play and hang out with them. Goldie in particular, she was the one that was allowed in the house. Growing up, he had a cat named Mr. Clean, who nobody could even come close to, and Goldie was the closest thing that came close to Mr. Clean, and the only cat he allowed inside. After I moved away, we would bond over dinners and his sense of humor. He was always sharp as a tack until the day he died, and carried that same personality, sense of humor with him that he's had his entire life. He never put his health as a priority and avoided doctors at all costs. Unfortunately, it finally caught up with him in 2020. He couldn't have picked a worse time to get sick and go to the hospital. With COVID, none of us were even allowed to go see him. At first, I really thought that he was on his deathbed and that I would never get to see him again. But God gave him a second chance at life. It wasn't the same life, it was a very different life than he was used to, but still, a second chance. Eventually, he got out of the hospital in the nursing home. Aaron and my brother put their entire lives on hold to be his full-time caretaker these last few years. From administering dialysis 3 to 4 times a week to making sure he was always comfortable, Aaron really gave him the world. It was like working 3 full-time jobs, and because of him, he had another few good years left of his life that he would have never had otherwise. It meant the world to him just to be alive. At first, when my dad came home, he was showing major signs of improvement, doing things doctors told him he would never be able to do again, and feeling the best he has felt in a long, long time. It wasn't until the end of 2022 that he started slowing down. Had he gone sooner to the hospital, who knows if the outcome would have been different. Had he initially been able to go to a better hospital, who knows if things would have been different. His blood pressure was very low and unstable, and the paramedics had to bring him to St. Francis because it was the closest hospital. His oldest brother, my Uncle Si, died at St. Francis Hospital when I was only 5. My dad was horrified of dying there, and his final wish was to transfer to a different hospital, and I couldn't blame him. St. Francis was a very depressing place with lots of bad memories. Eventually, we were able to grant him his wish. He transferred to Glenbrook, and the staff was amazing. They really made it sound like he had a fighting chance and that they were doing everything they could. But I think by that time it was already too late. After being there for a little over 24 hours, everything spiraled out of control in an instant, and he took his last breath on Saturday night. I just hope that he went peacefully and without any suffering, and that he's in a much better place now. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to everyone who's here or who's tuning in online to watch this. We've been beyond blessed these last few days, and we've received so many gestures of kindness and goodwill that go way above and beyond your calls of duty. Thank you. He didn't have that many friends, but the ones that he did have mean the world to him, and they've been friends forever. From December till April, I avoid coming back here at all costs because I don't do cold. So Da, if you can hear me, thank you for choosing the warmest January day I've probably seen my whole life to be laid to rest. Because of you, I try so hard to put my health as a top priority, and I hope to see you in about 80 years, give or take, up in heaven. I love you.
I'm gonna stop looking back and start moving on. Learn how to face my fears. Love with all of my heart. Make my mark. I want to leave something here. Go out on a ledge without any net. That's what I'm gonna be about. Yeah, I want to be running when the sand runs out. A chorus from a 2004 song by my favorite country pop band, Rascal Flatts. A song that depicts a man visiting the grave of an old friend. A friend who didn't like to take chances and thus never experienced everything life had to offer. The man visiting the grave considers just how short life is, and just as the sand in an hourglass runs out, so too does our time on this earth. He vows from that day forward to live life to its fullest. Near the end of the song, he hears the voice of his friend whispering the same words. Yeah, I want to be running when the sand runs out. When driving in the car by myself over the last several months, I found myself blasting the song and crying, thinking about my dad. I thought about the message in the song and kept thinking about how much I hoped my dad would face his fears, particularly his fear of doctors. Dad, or Da, as my brother already told you we called him, was not an adventurous man, and he was not one to live life on the edge. Much of his life was fraught with health problems and pain. Yet my dad was a determined individual. When it came to measuring success, he held himself to a high standard. In fact, he could be very self-critical. Despite his health problems, from a young age, he pushed himself hard to complete college at Northeastern Illinois University, where he got his bachelor's in teaching history, and then pushed himself even harder and earned his master's in political science, which, as the rabbi already told you, he used to teach history and political science at the college level, a position which I believe he loved. It does not surprise me at all to hear that Da was quite the good lecturer. He loved engaging in intelligent discussions spanning a wide range of topics, which ranged from history and politics to real estate and sports. Good thing he liked politics and history because sports weren't my thing. I remember one Father's Day, my dad brought my brother and I to the park to play baseball, and we gave him grief the whole time. I'm sorry, Da. I would give anything to throw a baseball around with you now, if given another chance. Perhaps the most memorable quality about my dad, as you've already heard from the rabbi and my brother, was his sense of humor. It didn't matter the audience. Whether it was his family, a close group of friends, or his team of medical providers, he had an innate ability to light up the room and make everyone laugh. Of course, he saves some of the less appropriate humor for his close friends and family. When my dad got sick in 2020, there was a period of time we didn't think he was going to make it. He told the story of one of his nurses at Evanston Hospital who was being ever sympathetic yet grim about his condition at the time. He looked at her with a straight face and stated, "It's better than being dead." I'm not sure what it was, but this made the nurse start laughing so hard. If I know him, it's not just what he said, but how he said it. My dad didn't even have to try to be funny. He just had a natural ability to make people laugh and brighten their days. He was intelligent, loving, caring, and very funny. Some of our best memories are from sitting at the dinner table or Pesach Seders, engaging in discussions with my dad and laughing until our stomachs hurt, or until Isaac had soda pop coming out of his nose, in his younger years, of course. In June 2020, my dad was hospitalized with kidney failure and a diabetic leg infection. His unspoken philosophy on medical care was to wait until things became emergencies and then get treated for them. Unfortunately, this can be attributed to his grave fear of doctors and medical procedures. When he went into the hospital, he was started on emergent dialysis. After over a week of family and doctors trying to convince him, and after he backed out a few times while on the way to the operating room, he finally agreed to allow them to perform a much-needed surgery on his leg and to place nephrostomy tubes. This was not without bumps. However, during his recovery in the hospital, he called us to tell us he felt the best he had ever felt, and for the first time in years, he was free from pain. He also told us how he wished fear would not have gotten in his way of being treated sooner, and that we shouldn't take life for granted. I remember him telling me not to squander money. After all, it doesn't do you any good once you're dead. This was much different than his general philosophy. Be very frugal and careful. Be smart and don't let anybody make you a sucker, including those crooked car dealers. And as Isaac said, the operator thing. My dad's recovery was fraught with many bumps in the road, with multiple hospitalizations and months spent traveling between hospitals and rehab facilities, all during the heart of COVID when we couldn't even visit him and be there to comfort him. Finally, in December 2020, we decided we had had enough and it was time for him to come home. He still required a great deal of care at the time, but the concern was that said care could be best provided by his family, who loved him most, and not by strangers at understaffed skilled nursing and rehab facilities. Not to say that the last facility he was at didn't help him with the good treatment and therapy. They did for the most part. One of the largest obstacles we had to overcome in order to get my dad home was planning for dialysis. We knew my dad well enough to know that even if we could figure out a way to get him there, the likelihood of him going consistently was not all that likely. After all, why does he need dialysis if he's feeling good? We began by asking one nephrologist at the hospital whether home dialysis might be an option. And she looked at me and shook her head, speaking to me in a very pessimistic fashion. No. However, we would not take no for an answer. Unfortunately, my dad met another nephrologist in the hospital who I'd probably say is the dictionary definition of a mensch. Before my dad even began treating with Dr. Sprague, he came to comfort my dad in an effort to convince him to undergo a medical procedure and offering to stay in the room with him. My dad asked him if he was a rabbi, and he said no, he was a doctor. This made an impression on my dad and put him on my dad's short list of doctors he actually liked. Through research, our family was able to connect with a dialysis clinic with which Dr. Sprague was affiliated, and so began our journey of home dialysis. For 5 intensive weeks, I underwent training to be able to provide hemodialysis to my dad. The training was not easy, and to be honest, I didn't really get the hang of everything until several months after. However, when we started having one smooth treatment after another, I knew it was worth it. Dialysis was time-consuming, pretty much a second full-time job for me. But I didn't regret it then, and I do not for 1 second regret it now. As 2021 came and went, my dad was doing much better. To my family and I, the improvement in his health and the gains he made were nothing short of miraculous. This past Shabbos, we began Parshat Shemot. Shemot is a special parsha to me because it was my bar mitzvah parsha. However, it was also my dad's bar mitzvah parsha. Shemot has another special meaning to me, though, in the midst of all this. In Parshat Shemot, God talks to Moshe and lets him know he will be the one to ask Pharaoh to free the children of Israel and take them from their bondage in Egypt. Yet Moshe was afraid, thinking nobody would believe God had sent him. When the children of Israel saw the signs which God had performed, however, they believed Moshe. At the end of the Parsha, however, when Pharaoh refuses to free the children of Israel and they take out their grievances on Moshe, God says, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a mighty hand he will send them out, and with a mighty hand he will drive them out of this land." I feel these signs can be related in some ways to my dad's progression, only instead of being signs of punishment, they were signs of grace, compassion, and healing. Despite almost nobody believing my dad would improve, he made great strides and was able to get a good extra couple years out of his life. He fought, and fought hard. With God's help, we were able to cherish those 2 extra years with him. I wouldn't trade those years for anything. When the sand ran out, my dad went running. We love him, we miss him, and I know there remains a gap that will never go away. I love you, Dad.
At this point, oh, I didn't realize I was that short. Thanks. At this point, we had the ribbons. You are. Everybody has one.
No, they're going to shut the close.
Oh, okay. All right, so if I can ask the mourners to stand. Here is time, and do you have a ribbon?
Yep. Take a few moments. Just give me a few moments.
Yeah. All different behavioral bodies and minhaj. All different traditions. In a moment, we will be rending an article of clothing and a ribbon, which is a symbol that our life is torn now. Something is removed. It cannot be replaced. It cannot be fixed. And it's a beautiful symbol that people that see it will know that you're in a state of mourning. And every day when we put it on, it's a reminder. So, then we're going to say a blessing. And the blessing, the bracha is Baruch, say it with me, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Dayan Ha'emes. Which means, blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who is the judgment of truth and life, and what comes after life is truth. Please be seated.
Yeah. Do you want to do the now or?
let's put a little bit of the earth on there. In fact, let's do that right now.
And then we'll put the cover on.
Yeah, wait, let me let the family do that. Sure. Okay, so another tradition that we have, it's a mitzvah, if one can do it, to be buried in the land of Israel. That's not always possible for everybody. And so we have a tradition to take soil from, this is from Mount Olives in Israel, and we'll ask the family to sprinkle some of this on the coffin. And so it is as though being buried in the land of Israel. So whoever wants to start. However, you must really be careful. We don't permit falling. The next part, you're going to put the cover on. Yeah, I'll do a Hebrew and then. In the pamphlet, right below the 23rd Psalm, is the prayer, the El Mole Rachamim, first in Hebrew, and then we can say together in the English. El Mole Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Ametzeh Menucha Nechono Al Kanafei HaShekhinah, B'ma'alos Kedoshim U'Toharim, B'Zohar Horakim Azirim, Es Nishmas Earl Goldman, I'm sorry. Shalach lalamo ba'avur shenadvu tzedakah ba'ad hazikoras neshamoso b'gan eden tehei menuchoso l'chein ba'al harachamim yastirehu b'seser kanof l'olamim v'yisror b'tziyor hachayim es neshamoso Adonai hu nachaloso v'yanuach ha-mishkanavo v'shalom v'namar amen. And then the English, O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament into the soul of Earl H. Goldman, who has gone into eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life, be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And we all say, Amen. And just prior to the final of the prayers and then the Kaddish, there's an opportunity to do one last favor for Earl. And that's the opportunity to shovel some soil onto the grave. Now there's a tradition on how this is done. First thing is that we shovel 3 shovelfuls. They don't have to really be full. The soil is rather wet and heavy right now. But symbolically, three times. And then we put the shovel down or stick it into the soil. We don't hand it one to the other. And so each person that wants to can line up, and there's a shovel here, and do the mitzvah of filling this grave. Absolutely.
You can come forward on either side of the grave. There's the larger shovel. There's also a spade and a pail of some looser sand and earth that's easier perhaps to participate. So for that, you just kind of walk around. Everyone can participate at the same time. So you can either use the little spade there, the shovel here, or here.
It's heavy and hard to bust it up. Very good. Oh yeah.
If there's anyone else that would like to come forward, please do so. Friends, just as a reminder, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Goldman residence at 6441 North Kimball Avenue in Lincolnwood, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 3 until 5 and 7 until 9 p.m. On Friday, they'll be together for Shiva from 1 until 3, and Saturday, Motzi Shabbos, from 7 until 9 p.m. And the family has also requested that any memorial contributions in his memory to the Chicago Mitzvah campaign. All of that information is available in the service folder, and for those of you joining us online, that information is also available on our website. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. All right, if I can ask the mourners to come to the front. Where we will say the mourner's Kaddish. Yisgadal v'yiskadash shemei rabbah, v'yolamah divara chirusei v'yamlich malchusei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beis Yisrael, ba'agala divizman kori v'imeru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach liolam olamei olamaya. Yisbarak v'yishtabach v'yisba'ar v'yisramam v'yisnaseh v'yishador v'yisaleh v'yisalosh shemei dekudisha b'richu le'ela min kol b'richosa v'shirasa tushbechasa v'nechamasa da'amiran v'yolama v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom miramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imeru, amen. And if I can ask the friends that are here to make two rows, so that the mourners can walk between you and you'll be facing them. So you'll be facing each other in each row. And then I will ask that the mourners walk together through your friends and family, and while they are walking through, we are saying, Hamakom Yenachem Esachem Besoch Sha'or Avele Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God bring you comfort among all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.